I would like to do a comparison between all the river models. I've got them lined up here, most of them, and the EcoFlow River Extra battery. So the EcoFlow River, as I got it yesterday, that is 288 watt hour, and you can get it for a price of 399. Now, if you add the extra battery, you go to 668. That means that you are 69 euros more expensive than the River Max. So you really have to think, do you want to have the flexibility of having a small unit when I want to have a small unit, and to add the battery when I want to have a big unit? Or do you say like, okay, I want to have a big unit and I want to save myself 69 euros? That's the difference. That's the first difference, at least. Now, the size. As you can see here, the small river is only 4 centimeters, 4.1 centimeter smaller in height. So that's not that much. The weight is less, 5 kilogram. So that's, yeah, it's clearly less. If you add the extra battery, you're back to 7.5 kilograms again. But here is the big difference. The capacity in watt hours: 288, 476, and 720 if you buy the Pro model. And if you compare the capacity to the prices, you see that the bigger you go, the better the ratio is. Now, if you look at the ports, they're all the same. If you look at the AC power, they're all the same. Of course, with a smaller battery, it will have to work much harder if you want to output that, but okay, the capacity is still the same. Input DC, well, it's not exactly input DC, but you see here is the AC charge input power, and for the small unit it's 250, then it's for the max it's 500, and for the Pro it's 660 watt. That means that in an hour of time you can charge more watt hours when you have the bigger unit. And of course, for the small unit, it will be charged in 1 hour if you do it at this rate. But yeah, the number of watt hours that you had put into a certain period of time is not that large. Solar charging, they say it's the same. And they still rate here 12 amp hours. I'm not sure if that's still the case in the latest firmware, so yeah, you have to check on that. And the same thing is with here, they indicate 10 amp hours charge carb input. I'm not sure about that. I think that the firmware put it back to 8 amp hours, so just as a warning. Then you see a lot of things that are exactly the same, and you see here again the charging time over AC is also the same for all the devices. Just the Pro takes a bit longer to charge, but that's really not a big difference. And the Pro has a bigger battery, of course. So yeah, where it comes to is first of all price. There's a big difference in price if you think that the small river is enough for you, and you can always extend it later, but at the cost of an extra 69 euros, and then you have the same unit actually as the Max. You have the good thing is the weight. The charging at AC is a bit slower, but other than that, yeah, have your pick. Then I want to go to comparing the the River 288 version with the newly announced Mini. Well, you see the price difference. There is €50 between them, and they look a bit different. And if you go to the specs, you see that the River is 5 kilograms and the Mini is 2.8. The rest of the things in the first paragraphs are the same. When it comes to charging, you get the same numbers, but only solar panels at the River can take a bit longer, but that has to do with the bigger battery capacity. So this one does it in 2 to 3 hours, and with the bigger one it can take 3 to 6 hours. Well, yeah, probably just because of the bigger battery. Now here the battery, okay, as we know, 288 and 476 with the optional extra battery. Cycling is all the same cycles. There you go. And now here, as we saw before, the extreme charge of the River Mini is only 250 watts, and sorry, of the River 288 version is only 250 watts. I'm not sure what the Mini can do, so that you have to find out for yourself, please. Here you see car charging is 8 amp, and here also solar charging is 8 amp. And here they still say 12 amp solar charging and 10 amp car charging. Check your firmware, check the firmware to see if that is still the case. Output, and that is where the main difference is, 600 watt and 1200 watt peak for the normal River. And if you have a look at the Mini, you see 300 watt and 600 watt. And if you look at the ports, this one has a cigarette port, that's this port, but there are no additional ports here. And if you go back to the River, you have 2 additional ports. So there is a difference. And if these ports are for 12 volt, 3 amps, and you can use it for lights or small devices on 12 volt. So that's the difference that you might have to think about. And for the rest, even the ports, I think they're all actually the same. The app works the same. But this device is €50 cheaper. It's much more portable. It weighs only 2.8 kilograms instead of 5 kilograms. And you have wireless charging on top of it. The battery capacity is certainly less, and the AC capacity, so the AC output with 300 watt is also a lot less. So you have to think about which devices can you power with that. And I think from my experience, if you want to start cooking or heating things, then 300 watt is most of the time not going to do it. It's not going to work. You need more than 300 watt to do some cooking, induction plate, or some heating. And but on the other hand, you don't put the normal River in your backpack. And with the Mini, even though it's still a big chunk of stuff in your backpack, it's smaller. It should be less weight, and depending on your backpack, if you have a really outdoor backpack, this probably will fit. Smaller backpacks, it might be a problem to take with you. So if you go backpacking, this might be the device. For all other situations where you go with a car or a bike, I think that the standard EcoFlow River is much more useful. And certainly if you are going to use it in a camper or inside your house, then I would spend a bit more, have a bit more capacity, and have a better AC output. Okay, that's all.